If you've been wanting to make content, this is your sign.
So in order for me to fade this out, with this high taper, I want to really make it pop on this edge right here. So I'm going to do a lot of the fading here, like a half circle motion. What's going on, everybody? This is ET.TheBarber, and today we're with my man Jasper, and we're going to be doing a 2 with the grain, taper fade, clean the beard up. And for those who don't know, I'm known as the guy who cuts up a lot of your favorite NBA players. So you've seen a lot of my cuts probably on the big screen, whether it's an NBA or NFL. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial revealing all my industry secrets. If you guys want to know what's going on, stick around. So first things first, I'm going to brush the hair out, making note of any kind of significant hair pattern, any moles. I normally ask the client, is there anything I should be aware of? And if not, I'll just brush all the hair into the wave pattern, as you can see. So now I got my number 2 guard on, and I'm gonna go ahead and close that lever all the way. On any haircut, find the calic. That's gonna give you a lot of the secrets you need to know. So after one pass, what I generally like to do is rebrush the hair just to make sure if I missed any hairs or not to go back over it again. Every little hair counts. And you don't need to worry too much about going all the way to the edge of the hairline with this number 2 guard, because essentially if I'm gonna be tapering out all right here and I'm gonna take the edges down a little bit with a 1, 1.5, knowing I'm gonna do that anyway, I'm not gonna cut it with a 2 because it's gonna get cut with a 1. So save yourself the time, don't double cut. You wanna do one haircut, not multiple. So starting off with my first guideline, I'm gonna be using the brand new Gamma Boosted trimmer. Now this trimmer is by far my favorite. Right now, it has 8,000 RPMs, it cuts through the hair like butter, no irritation, diamond-like carbon blade, absolutely amazing. So when starting a high taper, I generally use his ear and his eye as my reference points. I'll also look at if there's any light spots in the hair to make sure to use that to my advantage. For example, if he had a scar right here, I would make that my guideline, so then I wouldn't have to try and fade through that scar. So in this case, no scars, nothing, we're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my first guideline. And you always want to remember to ask your client if they want their beard faded. If so, how low do they want it faded? In this case, I'm going to fade his beard pretty low, but I'm going to leave it right there for now just so we can keep the taper high. It's always good to leave some hair over underneath where you're fading just so you can see the contrast and not get lost in your blends. So still with my boosted trimmer, I'm going to go ahead and clean that area up pretty consistent. So I have a rule of thumb when it comes to recording or when it comes to cutting any kind of hair. My rule of thumb is make guidelines clean, because if you have clean guidelines, you'll have a clean haircut. Just like if any hairstylist was doing longer hair, you want to make sure that your sections and your partings are clean. The cleaner the sections and partings, the cleaner the haircut. Same thing with us guys. The cleaner the guidelines with short hair, the cleaner the haircut. My next step, I'm going to take this Instinct X, brand new. It has the fade blade on it. So my first guideline, I'm going to take this about 1/2 inch above the initial guideline with a trimmer. And the next step, I'm going to use a 1.5 guard open. Now this tie guard is going to be nice for this case because if I just jump into a 1/2 or a 1, I'm going to take off a lot of this darkness and bulk that I might need for the contrast. So just in case, I'm going to go ahead and jump to a 1.5 guard. And knowing we went with the 2 up top, I know for sure that I can take this 1.5 guard and at least clean up all this hair right here to make it consistent. So I'm gonna take my 1.5 guard, close it all the way, and brush down the hair pattern. You'll notice that this takes care of a lot of the bulk. Again, you don't want to take too much hair off with these haircuts. Sometimes it's not what you cut, but it's what you leave. Part of the reason why I like using this Instinct X clipper is because of the vector motor. So for those who don't know, the vector motor basically will ramp up in RPM when it has resistance in the hair. So it's able to actually do your job. I know we've all had that trouble back in the day where you're cutting and then the clippers kind of get caught. Well, with this motor, if that were to happen, the motor actually speeds up to be able to cut that hair, which is really, really important for coarse hair like my model. Now I have my one guard closed all the way, brushing that hair. Haven't started the fading process quite yet. Still breaking down all of this bulk so then I can detail it in. Again, with this high taper, I want to really make it pop on this edge right here. So I'm going to do a lot of the fading here in like a half circle motion. Next step, I take my half guard. I'm going to open it, doing the exact same brushing down the wave pattern. With this kind of a haircut, remember you can always take hair off. You can't put it back on. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. And if you'll notice, I'm knocking down the notches one by one. Another big benefit that this clipper has is it has the notch system here for the lever, and that's really important for me because it helps me keep track of where I'm at in the haircut. So generally, I'll just go all the way open, one notch down, another notch, all the way closed. So I know it's 4 notches for me from open all the way to close and vice versa. All right, now I'm gonna take all guards off and just start using what we call lever play. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with it all the way open, going above this first guideline that I made with my trimmer. Now when I'm fading, I generally only like to use about 2 or 3 teeth of the blade just to give me more precision. At that point, I'm able to control where I'm fading a lot more versus if I use the full length of the blade. If I cut too much, it's gonna be hard for me to put hair back on. Now I'm gonna detail a little bit with my trimmer, and I like to use either a taper comb or any kind of a comb that has fine teeth, just so you can get some of the dark spots in the haircut. And it's really nice to brush the hair down because it'll expose everything that you need to cut. And if you're cutting dark hair, use a white comb. If you're cutting light hair, use a dark comb. That color contrast is gonna help the hair pop out of the comb so you can actually cut accurately. Now this next part is gonna be tricky. So if you're a beginning barber, I might not do this, but if you're an advanced intermediate barber, you're gonna wanna take the clipper, no guard, open it all the way, and it's a system I call raking. You wanna rake the hair down to try and even out this fade a little bit more. So tilt the head, pull the skin, find the hairs that are sticking up, and rake down. This is gonna help all the hair lay in place so that you have no flyaways and get a smooth haircut. You can even use a trimmer to point cut a little bit and remove some of the dark lines and weight. So when I do that, I'll turn my trimmer actually perpendicular to the head to then get the lights, or to get the dark spots that are noticeable in the fade. But again, be very careful when you do this. Start low. Too much and you're gonna make another line. Now I'm using the world's best single foil shaver, the Uno 2.0. Big tip when you're using any kind of a shaver is you do not want to go above that hard line that you made initially, otherwise you're going to be pushing the fade up higher. So if you want, put your finger, put a comb, whatever, in front of that line where you can't go above as like a safety net. If you know what you're doing, then go for it. And if you need help fading that out, you could also fade down. So I'll take the bulk out going up, and then I'll soften that line by kind of just marking down. And if you guys are wondering what that white powder was, that's actually just talc. So that helps dry out the skin so the shaver has a smoother shave. So if you guys notice, something I'm always doing is pulling the skin out. What that does is it gives me a bigger surface area to fade, but then it also exposes all the little hairs that are sticking up. What's up?
Don't be looking mad at the hair either.
The fade face came in?
Yeah.
So for this kind of hair, what I'll also advise is using your favorite mousse. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna lay the hair down and it's gonna help you see if there's any imperfections in your fade or the haircut alone. So having some kind of a wave definer is always good with this type of hair. So after I put the mousse down, I'm gonna use a wave brush. So StyleCraft has a wave brush, and I'm just gonna brush everything down with the wave pattern, and you'll see afterward how smooth everything will look. Is the audio getting picked up if I talk right now? So another tip that I would advise is brushing the hair with the wave brush and using my XL blow dryer on high heat. It'll help dry out the foam a whole lot faster. And you can see those waves starting to pop in just from that alone. And I would just advise, don't overcomplicate the haircuts. Instead of having to think about doing everything all at once, just break it down. So I like to break it down in different sections. I'll do one section, other side, very back, making 3 sections, then tie it all in together, and that's how you have a way smoother transition versus if you try to do everything all at once. For me, there's 3 things that I pay attention to with every haircut, non-negotiable: the shape, the balance, and the contrast. So it doesn't matter how good you can fade, if it doesn't fit their head shape, it's not gonna look good, because the fading is only one aspect to the haircut. It has to have shape and balance also. How you doing, Jasper?
Your part of this is just as important, but I know how it is to sit.
No, I'm getting no cut. Can't do nothing. Be patient. It's cool to learn about these clippers too as we doing the cut.
So one of the things I like to do around the hairline is I'll take a 1 open and I'll go along the whole edge to lay down any little flyaways. This is gonna be important when you're lining up so then you can get a true lineup, because when they walk out of the door, you wanna make sure that they have the same lineup as when they left the chair. They brush their hand over their face or they're playing basketball or something. If they don't have that hair laid down, it won't be a true lineup. Important tip though, you want to make sure that there's no cowlicks that you're cutting, because then you're cutting against the grain and going to leave a hole in the haircut. If you're a new barber, one of the things that I was afraid of in the beginning of cutting hair was having the confidence to actually put on the right guards or to actually make that move. I know a lot of times we want to kind of, tippy toe around the haircut, but being more confident in your skills, being more confident in what you're going to do and execute will help a lot. That has helped me transition into cutting up a lot of the NBA players. Last week I was cutting up Zion, and there's a couple things that normally I wouldn't have done, but the fact that I've taken the times to get enough reps in and be confident with my work, I was able to actually make those cuts and it came out great. So now starting the back part of the taper, I'm gonna always make sure I know where his occipital bone is, because that's gonna help me really dictate where exactly I'm gonna take the fade as far as how high I go. I'll also look for any light spots and abnormal growth patterns. So I can see already right here, there's a light spot right in this little section. So I know at the very minimum, I'm gonna make my guideline right here. Because if you try and take the guideline lower than that, it's gonna be hard to fade into that. I'm gonna make my first guideline right above that light spot. So using my boosted trimmers again. So I'm gonna take the same approach on the back as I did on the sides. So after my first initial guideline, 1/2 inch above that first guide.
Whoa.
It's like, that was like me in the hotel yesterday. So now I'm gonna be switching the clipper up to the StyleCraft Ergo with the Vapor blade on it. Why I made the switch is because this has a magnetic motor and it's a lot better for detailing versus the Instinct X with a vector motor, taking off more bulk. Yeah, so right now if you notice his growth pattern goes down this way and then across this way. So in order for me to fade this out, I can't go against it this way or that way because I would be brushing it. So I actually have to go against it, going diagonal. And you'll notice right here, it goes straight down, so I'm gonna go straight at it. The nape is probably one of the trickiest areas to blend when it comes to a taper fade, just because of all the abnormal growth patterns. So just be aware of where the hair is growing so you can attack it properly. So we got the hair growing sideways right here. You've got some fun growth patterns, bro. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. That was the stuff bottom mustache.
When you're using a blow dryer, always just make sure that it's not too hot on the client's scalp. You don't want to be burning up your clients, that's for sure. Unless I didn't pay for the last haircut, then slip one or two in, go for it. If you've been wanting to make content, this is your sign. Make content, be transparent. The one thing that your clients want to see is them on your social media, because it'll help them. It'll make them feel special. It'll help market haircuts you want to actually do. And at the end of the day, there's someone out there that is worse than cutting hair than you, that is twice as booked out simply because they're marketing themselves and they're putting themselves out there. So put yourselves out there, guys. If you guys need any tips on social media, go ahead and shoot me a message, a DM, follow ET.TheBarber. I respond to all my messages. One thing I will say again is just put yourself out there. If you're not trying, then, you know, it's going to be hard to really get an outreach of a zip code. So to be able to reach people who are not in your zip code, you got to have the internet. Just pick out the dark spots, and one or two little strokes will be good. You don't want to overcut. Just spot check. Something I would take note of when you're lining up the side of the taper is where their last haircut was, where their hair naturally wants to grow, and where the light spots are. So if you can see right here, this line was his old lineup, but if you notice right here is where his natural lineup wants to be. So you have to kind of meet in the middle, and obviously make sure to consult with your client, all of these things, so then you're not pushing their line back on their account. You want to make sure that you're just fully transparent on what you're doing, and they'll respect you a whole lot more. If you guys run into the issue where an area is giving you troubles, move on to something else and then come back to it later, because your eyes will have a different perspective once you go and look at something else. So I'm gonna move on from the back onto the hairline and then come and detail everything else afterward. Again, when you're doing the front lineup, you wanna make sure that you look for any light spots. Also ask him if he wants it straight back, rounded, any preference, because some people are very particular with their hairline. So when it comes to this part, always consult. And then make sure when you're doing the hairline, they're not talking, they're not chewing gum. You need them as still as possible, preferably looking down a little bit. So I see light spot, And then also you want to make sure that it's symmetrical on both sides of the sidebar. So starting in the middle, brushing it down. I'll go from center to right and then center to left and then tap on at any corner to make sure that everything is nice and straight. One key when you're doing a lineup also is to constantly keep brushing down so you can get any flyaways. When you're doing a hairline, instead of having to go back and forth, what I'll do is I will have the client turn towards me and then look down so I can get both sides standing in one spot. So notice how many points of contact I have on his face when I'm doing a lineup. I have a hand here, I have my knuckle, and then right there. So what this is doing is bracing me for stability. And one thing that I like about these trimmers is they're actually a little bit heavier and you need that for a trimmer so then you don't depend on you controlling the clipper and you have more accuracy. If this was super light, I would be more shaking, but the fact that it has a little bit of weight to it keeps it more stable when I have my hands 1, 2, and 3 positioned. Now I can just stamp and cut. Get any little flyaways if you wish. You can either use a trimmer, a clipper. If you're confident with it, use a trimmer as it will get a lot closer to the hair. If you're not, put on your guard again and just start raking. Just remember guys, use the tools to your advantage. So what I just did right here was I used the back of the blade as like a, what would you call it? Like a bumper. So you want to use this as like a bumper. So I know if this is my bumper right here, don't go past that and I can keep going straight as long as I'm keeping that same angle on the bumper. All right guys, so here we have it. This is the final look on my man's here. We did a high taper, 2 with the grain. If you guys liked it, make sure to follow us for more. Stick around for the next video as I am gonna be doing his beard.